Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Somerville for Wednesday, January the 4th, 2023. It is 6:01 p.m. and I do have an announcement to make. Pursuant to the Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of this agenda. Tonight, we're going to move the agenda around just a little bit, and we're going to take an item that's down under other business. It's the review and the vote of changes to 34 North Street, Clarendon Hill, 40B. Could you folks please step up and speak to us?
This is Charlotte speaking. I'm going to promote everyone that I believe is a member of the team. And if you can just turn on your camera once you're promoted, that would be great. If there's anyone else I should promote, John and Kendra, I've promoted you. And also if either one of you want to share your screen, let me know and I will make you the presenter.
Thanks, Charlotte. I think, Kendra, if you can share your screen.
Welcome. This is Susan. I'm welcoming you. Who's going to speak first tonight?
Hi, Chair Fontano. Thank you for the welcome. We'll be very brief. So I can give a quick intro, and then I think, Kendra, if you can share your screen. Looks like that's in process. Good evening. My name is John Springfield, Senior Project Manager at Preservation of Affordable Housing, based at 2 Oliver Street, Boston. Joined by my colleague Kendra from Icon Architecture. We'll be very brief. We have 3 amendments for your consideration. The first, Kendra will discuss, which is a minor adjustment to the building footprint. The second relates to off-site stored materials, and the third relates to the traffic impact study timing. Kendra, I think if you're trying to share the PowerPoint, I'm not sure that's up yet.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, perfectly.
Do you see my email or do you see the presentation?
Email.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Well, easy enough. Then I will do this.
Flip it out right.
That work?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for seeing us. We do just have a few slides here. John, shall I just go right through?
That'd be great.
Great. All right. So to remind ourselves where we are looking at Clarendon Hill with Alewife Brook Parkway along the top corner of the building. We're looking at building E. And we've got, 3 topics here that we're here to talk to you about. First is setbacks that I will discuss, and then John will talk about conditions 15 and 25. So we are here, we've had to make some setback adjustments. Now, we had previously come in and requested waivers for the setbacks along the perimeter of the building. We have a few changes here because we had to add a column right here in the crux of the building where we've put the red dashed dot, and so the building had to stretch. My next slide shows what the implications of these setbacks are. Each of these revisions are within inches of what was approved. So for example, here along Alewife Brook Parkway down at the bottom of the hill, it is a 7-inch decrease in setback dimension. At the curve of the corner, it's a decrease of 1 inch. Here at the main entry to the building is an increase of 8 inches for this setback. Alongside the left side of the building, adjacent to our future building D, is a decrease of about 5 inches to that setback. And then at the back of the building, backing up to Stop and Shop, we have a rear setback that was approved at 9 feet and is adjusted down to a 7'11" setback. So these are the results of the construction method and developing the drawings further. Does anyone have questions at this point?
No, you guys all set?
Yes. Let me pass this to John now.
Thanks, Kendra. So the second is condition 15, really just relates to having the option to store materials offsite with property owner approval, which is really just to reduce impact on the residents who remain on site, should this be a preferred option. And Kendra, condition 25 relates to updating the traffic impact study related to the offsite infrastructure work. If such an update is requested by city staff, we have not received a request, but we're happy to extend that window until the end of the project with certificates of occupancy, should that request come from city staff. So this is just kind of a shift from that requirement happening now versus at the end of the project, as suggested by the city. So I think that those are all the slides. Those are the 3 items. We do apologize for coming back a second time, but we are really just hoping that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed so that we can move into construction with the ZBA's consideration. With that, through the chair, happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Did you say at the end of your statement just now, Mr. Springfield, that some of it was also the request of the city with the traffic?
Yes,
I think-
sorry, through the chair, the thinking was that, so, we asked the city staff if there was a request for an updated traffic impact study, and the question was that we move that requirement until certificates of occupancy so that the city would have an opportunity to make that request later should they want to.
Okay. I'll open it up to the board. Do you have any comments or questions for these folks here tonight? Or is it pretty much self-explanatory to you? Raise your hand, please, if you have a question. Okay, seeing no hands raised, we'll go back to the presenters and just say, hi, Emily. Just saw you come on board. Welcome. Yeah, so I guess we do have to make a motion by our acting clerk tonight to take a vote that it was not substantial. And I think if Charlotte's on board, or even Emily can answer this, do we have to answer make the motion for each change? Or can we make it as presented as a unit?
No, you could make the motion for the requested amendments as presented. I would also like to note for the board that staff has suggested that if the board is inclined to do so, there could be an option for an additional change that would allow the Director of Planning, Preservation, and Zoning to review and approve changes in conditions only as related to their timing for compliance. So, for example, if Clarendon were to come back and say, we would like to change the timing and compliance for condition X to before the building permit for this building, to before the certificate of occupancy for this building, just as they're doing right now for condition 25. They could do that at the staff level instead of having to come before the zoning board. This is just an option that we wanted to put out before the board tonight. This is not something that Clarendon has requested, and it's just something that staff thought may be beneficial to both the board and the applicant.
I don't know what go ahead, Brian. Brian Cook, please.
I was just going to suggest that we take the vote on the question of the substantial or unsubstantial changes and then address the second point that Emily just raised as to whether the board can defer to making staff level decisions on those things that staff recommends they can handle.
So you want to take care of business first, and then we'll move on to the second suggestion.
Because that's
agree.
more of an administrative.
Yeah, I get
Okay.
it. So
Question.
let's do that. Madam Clerk, this evening, why don't you make a motion? Well, I think so we're saying that it's insubstantial. You know, it's okay to go forward. So you take care of that, Ann, and we'll
Okay.
vote.
Madam Chair, in the matter of Clarendon Hill, 34 North Street, P&Z case number 22-179, I make a motion to find that the changes as presented today are insubstantial revisions to the comprehensive permit.
Thank you. May I have a second by somebody on the board?
Second.
Brian Cook, thank you. All in favor, we'll go around as we call out your name. Say yay or nay. Cecia,
Yay.
Brian,
Yay.
Zachary,
Yay.
Ann Brockelman,
Yay.
and Susan Fontano, yay. Let the record show it was unanimous that we find the application insubstantial. Thank you. So that's done. The second comment to go forward, I personally would rather keep it the way it is. I think they apply, you guys get it, push it right on to us, and we'll give it our utmost quick attention like we did tonight, moving it on the agenda. I think it keeps us in the loop, keeps us aware of things are going. That's just my 2 cents. I go with the board. Ian, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I think for such an important project with a lot of public interest, I think this speaks to the openness of the process. I know without trying to, make the timing be a hardship to the project team, because everybody does want this project to go ahead as quickly as possible. But we can be, as efficient and expedite things as quickly as possible. But I think the public is very interested in this project. So even, small minutia things that there is value in commenting on it in a public way.
Thank you. You folks, Zachary, Brian, Cisa, do you have any 2 cents you want to weigh in on? No. You're,
Well, just as a new member, it's
Yeah.
good to hear these things and to see what kinds of changes sometimes come before the board. So I support the chair's preference to keep things the way they are.
great. And just 1 minute, Emily. Yeah, to piggyback on that, it is true. We've got new members, and these things came before us, before you were on board. So at least you get a little refresher course as they're growing and going, and things might change. So thank you. Ms. Hutchings, you have a comment?
I just wanted to say if this is what makes the board feel comfortable, then it could be approved with the condition that staff would provide updates to the board if ever there are changes. However, if the board would like to leave it as is, I fully understand that, and I have no problem with it.
I want to leave it as is. Does everybody else want to do that? Yes, they're shaking yes. We're going to leave it as, thank you. I get the courtesy and I appreciate it, but like Ann said, this is a big one. We want to be right, and we are responsible, and it keeps us in the ballpark with you guys, seeing what's going on. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Springfield and Kendra. Nice to see you again. See you soon.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Okay, so next we're gonna jump to 42 to 44 Hamilton Road.
This is Charlotte Lee speaking.
Hi, Charlotte.
Applicant team, if you could raise your hand and let me know who you are, I can promote you so that you can present your screen and talk to the board. Justin Yang, I see you. Justin, is there anyone else that should be promoted?
So can you hear me?
Yes, we
we can hear
can.
you.
Okay.
Can we
So
see you?
let me,
Possible for
just
us
one
to see
second.
you?
I had some difficulty right now. Just 1 second. Share my webcam.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Very nice to see you
Hello,
again.
welcome. So, how are we doing tonight? We have any new news for us? Is Andrew here tonight? Is Andrew from the city here tonight?
I'm here, Chair. From
Good evening. How you doing tonight? So
Happy
did
New
you?
Year.
Same to you. Did you iron out some of these questions we had?
Yes, I know. There was some other items that we heard that from other board members that weren't necessarily addressed, and I wanted to address those concerns and comments tonight, if that's okay with you, Chair Fontano. But whatever order you
Absolutely.
want to go in, just let me
No,
know.
please. You don't have to rehash a lot of stuff. You've got the info. Give us some answers, and if any of us have some questions that weren't answered, we'll speak up.
Sure, absolutely. So Mr. Yang, I was able to provide the approved plan set from his previous renovations, which included the renovations to the attic of the unit, which included the addition of several rooms through the addition of dormers. And it was 4 total rooms, and the plan set that he sent to us and then we sent to you was the approved plan set by ISD. So I wanted to confirm that there's 2 rooms on that on the floor plan that are titled study room. However, they equal the definition of a bedroom by the zoning ordinance.
What did you
So
say?
they meet the definition of a bedroom by the definition that's in the zoning ordinance, and ISD confirmed that with staff.
So why aren't we calling, what are we applying for here? There's one,
Well, I just wanted, that was a question that a board member brought up. They wanted just to make
Yeah.
sure that you received the proper plan set. I just wanted to confirm that is the proper approved
so
plan set.
here's my question though, for
Sure.
me. I think it was Ann that maybe asked it, Ann Fullerton, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking at the plans that were shipped to us today, or in this packet. And
Yep.
down on the first floor, well, the second floor of the house, but the first floor of this enclosure is 2 bedrooms with the living room, dining room, and kitchen, correct?
Mhm.
And then on the next level is 1 2-bedroom and 2 study rooms.
Correct.
That in time could be a bedroom, you're saying, because they fall into the category for being approved.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so we're asking for 4 bedrooms. And that's what's in our papers at the end of the day?
So on the plans, they're called study rooms, but the intention of them being used as a bedroom is possible. It's habitable space, and just the plans. Mr. Yang may be able to address that more specifically why he originally had them as study rooms, but I just wanted to convey that they will be used as bedrooms. And Mr. Yang, obviously you can confirm that, and you have confirmed that, but in the plan set, I can't tell you why they were labeled study rooms in that approved plan set.
So that's my comment. My comment is when we look at a plans, and Ian Brockelman, I'd like you to weigh in on this for me because you're an architect and you've been on the board quite a while. When I look at these, I want to see the rooms labeled for what they are going to be used for and what is in the packet that we're going to approve. You see what I'm saying, Ian?
Yes,
Am
I think I get you now, Chair Fontano. So you want to basically see plans that call those 2 rooms all the rooms bedrooms that are going to be used.
What's going to be a bedroom should be marked.
Okay.
If they don't make it a
Gotcha.
bedroom or they make it a study, I don't care. But what we're approving here tonight, hopefully, is a package that's going to be put away for how many years, and then somebody might have to pull it out and look at it. And I want them to know that we were paying attention to what we were doing. And
Gotcha.
that if it's not 4 bedrooms, It's 6
Well,
bedrooms.
sure. What we can do if, because Mr. Yang, again, wants those to be used as bedrooms, we can
That's right.
condition the project to send a plan set to either PPZ and ISD that updates those, that the floor plan set, make sure they say bedroom and not study room.
Right. You know, like
Yeah.
earlier, now the case in front of us, they say, you know, you guys, lots of times, we will say, you know, so this doesn't have to come back to us.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. We condition it specifically so it could read that way.
We entrust it to you. So,
Or, you know, ISD can check that the plan set says bedroom and not study room, for example.
right, that's what I'm
Yep.
saying. So that when
Okay.
everything goes away and is filed away, it's
Mhm.
done right. It wasn't, we didn't forget or slip up on something. Or does somebody come back and
Absolutely.
challenge Mr. Yang, you know, down the road sometime? I don't want them bothering the man once he sets it up. So, okay, so that was one thing I knew. I thought that was Ann Fullerton that was questioning that. And I do understand that if ISD deems them habitable and we don't have to worry about the egresses and all that, they take that all into consideration. That's beautiful.
Yes, and I also wanted to address the question related to tenants per bedroom.
Yes,
ISD was able to get back to us at the, from, I guess, the building code perspective. Remember, that's different from zoning. The number of tenants per square footage, it's 1 per 200 gross square feet.
okay.
But remember, that's building code, but I just wanted to convey that's what ISD told us today, staff.
Yeah, yeah. So these rooms aren't 200 square feet anyway. When I look at the plan,
So again, I'm aware of that, but again, that's building code. This is zoning, portrayed to zoning. I just wanted to convey that information.
and what's our zoning say?
Our zoning doesn't have anything related to that.
All right, so we'd fall on the building
That's
probably.
building, the
Right.
purview of building. Yes.
Okay. I don't think any of these rooms are 200. Are they, Mr. Yang?
No,
Good. Okay, that solves that question. All right. So they're 1 per room. So we're talking 6. Okay. Let's see here. And Ann, did you have some questions outstanding?
Yes, I was trying to understand at what point does accessibility requirements kick in, such as the Fair Housing Act, you know, when we thought that there would be 2 per bedroom, as many as, you know, 16, 8 rooms times 16. I was just wondering if there was a threshold and if that was applicable to this project, or if he's exempt as a private landlord. Andrew, can you share your findings?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll have Emily Hutchings confirm for me, but I believe that he's exempt since it's a 2-unit detached home and not a multi. I think the definition of multifamily is 4 or more units.
Mhm.
But Emily can confirm. So I believe ADA and those sort of accessibility and, you know, things related to elevator don't comply to this property.
That is correct. Hello again, Madam Chair, members of the ZBA. Accessibility requirements do not kick in for this project.
Okay, beautiful. That we want to know about that. And we have, what's the other thing here? 1 second, please. I'm trying to regroup because I'd like just to get this all done. Labor in the rooms, site plan, special permit, access, all the people that were calling in. Oh, did we decide if we could make this go with the owner and not the property, the approval of how we're categorizing this and approving this evening?
That is correct. So you can attach a condition that the special permits attached to the applicant and not the property. So it carries with the property owner, not the property itself.
Okay, I would like to ask the board what they feel about that. I would like to do that. I know last meeting, we had a lot of the public weighing in and talking to us, and, you know, I've got as many of the notes as I could right as they were speaking. And I know they had a lot of concern that this is kind of a new thing in their neighborhood. And other people were asking us too, like they said, gee, the guy came forward, you know, he's being honest, he's being upfront and everything else. And he had neighborhood meetings, he's done all these things. But what happens in the event that someday Mr. Yang leaves? I mean, he may not even stay there. His wife's going to retire, she's going to come, then they'll be there. This kid's going to be in school for X amount of years. But as the son moves on, maybe to bigger and better things or his career, and the family wants to leave and go to maybe a nice little single family house someplace, we want to make sure that this property is monitored for the next people. So I think it should I think it would like to see it would stay with Mr. Yang. He's really tried hard for this. And who knows, if it's a great experience in the neighborhood and he knows somebody and they come in and pick it right up, it might go right along like a easy, because it's got some history attached to the operations of the property. So I'd like to ask the board what they think about that. Yes, Brian Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not exactly sure what your concern is. So if Mr. Yang and his wife sold the property and there's a new owner, what's the problem with it remaining designated as group living as opposed to single family or whatever it is?
Well,
What's
it's a
the problem?
two-family dwelling. It's
Yeah.
two-family now. There's a tenant on the first floor. And I mean, this style could stay forever. But I think we listen to a lot of the people, especially up in West Somerville, where Tufts is. And there's a lot of displeasure sometimes with the kids living in these houses. The lifestyle, the hours, the parties, and this and that. Mr. Yang already wrote up a whole big thing. All the neighbors, if you look at the neighborhood meeting and some of the questions they had, that was a subject. And I can remember several years ago in my neighborhood, I had a butter, they did this. And it was so short term, the landlord himself didn't like it. He didn't like what was going on. The kids were just out of control. So I think in consideration of the people that live in West Somerville and around Tufts and have a lot of students. I mean, there's a lot of people who have one or two kids already living in their place, or I know people have exchange students from other countries. And as long as you have the right person ahead of the project, it runs beautifully. But if you have somebody who's absentee or who really doesn't care that much, that they're not fastidious enough, there are some, it's not as all cracked up to what it should be. And I think we know that from having even absentee landlords on a two-family house in the city. You know, it's just sometimes the property gets neglected, the people in and out, the parties, the drinking, or whatever have you. So, I mean, I hope this gentleman keeps us for years, or his son takes it over, or whatever they do. But I think as we go forward, I think it would be okay for us to take a look at it, whether it be who's ever here in 10 years, you know, whatever it may be or more. So that's my only concern.
May I just follow up? So
Yeah.
if I'm understanding you correctly, the implication of that condition would be that in the event of a change of ownership, the new owner would have to apply for the special permit for group living again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Zachary.
I just want to bring up for the board to consider that this could also give Mr. Yang some economic hardship if he decides that he wants to sell the building. And now that this permit doesn't carry over, it might lose some value for them. It's just something I think we should think about, because he did put, you know, probably not an insignificant amount of money into rehabbing this building.
That's a thought. That's a thought. I'm hoping, I mean, in the ideal world, if the day he chooses, wants to sell it or whatever, however he'd market it, if he had met with somebody he wants to sell it to, and they want it as a business, I will call it that for the sake of, you know, it's just not a two-family house. A lot of people sell their house, they they miss it, they don't care, whatever it can be. This here is a business in my book, and more than just somebody who rents out 2 apartments in a house that they're living in. And so I get what you're saying, and that is an option. I didn't even think of that. But anybody else? Lisa?
I mean, I think one way, one path for it could be that we ask Mr. Yang to come back in 2 years and see if there's been any disruption in the neighborhood or how the neighbors feel about it. And then if there isn't, it could be made, you know, a permanent condition that goes with the property. It would allow opportunity to check in to see how, you know, if there were problems that arose in the neighborhood.
I don't know if that's in our purview, if we can do something like that. Is Charlotte on board? Or Andrew, you know about this? Can you make a can you make us a special
So
condition?
I'm not sure, but I guess it's possible you can condition it that the applicant, I'm just wondering what you would attach to it to make him come back in 2 years.
Yeah,
So maybe Emily or Charlotte, they can.
I'd rather do one or the other myself. We're not here to hold a man's hand and make sure, you know, everything's great. I mean, if the board, I go with the board. You new folks, I usually say it's the pleasure of the board. We're a majority here. We do need 4 votes tonight for this. But if you folks want to just let it go like that, that's no special connection conditions on it. That's fine with me. Andrew, Mr. Kaminsky.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I just also wanted to note that Acting Executive Director Tom Galligani is here to speak on behalf of the administration.
Oh,
I just
great.
wanted to make you aware of that. And he has some comments to say tonight.
Let him speak. Hello.
He's here. Yeah.
Hello.
Madam Chair, it's good to meet you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Tom Galligani. I serve as the Acting Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development. I've met some of you in the past in my capacity as a Director of Economic Development, and to new members, it's a pleasure to meet you. Review of the ZBA public hearing and neighborhood meeting notes has raised additional concerns from the administration. We heard concerns about the impact this project might have on the immediate neighborhood. And the administration has also been developing policies related to the impact of off-campus student housing on rising rents in Somerville. In light of this, I respectfully request that the board continue this hearing, ideally for 1 month, to allow the administration to take a closer look at the details of this case and the neighborhood context and the policy implications.
Okay, well, that helps us tonight because that was what I was referring to, Mr. Galliani, is the neighborhood meeting. I mean, that's our contact, the counselor, they step forward and they talk to us about it. So if that's the wish of the administration, we'll go with continuing the case and we can look into it and get more information to make a intelligent and fair approval. All right, well, thank you for joining us and giving us the direction.
Thank you, board.
Okay. Mr. Brian Cook, can we help you? Yes, sir.
I wonder if Mr. Yang can tell us what the implications of having to wait yet another month for a decision on this special permit application.
Can you repeat it one more time? I'm just.
Can you just tell us what the implication for you is of having to wait an additional month before the board makes a final decision?
For me, it's very stressful, simply because I don't know what's going on. I initially is just say, well, I follow everything. I'm going to do everything because my son live here and he's in college, just going to grow up. It's good to know exactly what we do is going to everything follow the rule. And even though there's all other people like you all know, they can advise me, you don't have to do anything in this nuts. But start from when we bought this house, initially, we think this is a good place for kids growing up. And when we designed the architecture design, we want to be like our family live here. Like several years later, my son could get a girlfriend, get a wife, then we can have 2 levels, live there. It's beautifully designed that way. But at this moment in time, he's still young. So I think the rest of the room we can share with his friends or his top students, something like this. And for us, I think it's also a process to learn how this college kids thinking, which can help me to understand to support my son. That's where it's come from. I started this process 6 months ago, and periodically, quite often, of course, to interact with the different departments, even community members, and come to here with the board members, Madam Chairman, well. And it's always one thing, which for me is, I think you can tell, I'm not very good on those, public, things. It's really kind of a shy person. It's very stressful. And I don't want to get any trouble. As you can imagine, it's not worth it for me, right? And I think this is good process. Doing something is good for us and for my son. And it seems like I kind of get it. The board so far has kind of make my case as a kind of a big story, and also for everybody can show what's going on there. For me, it's very stressful, extremely stressful. I a lot from my work has been distracted because I didn't know this process. And Mr. Graniskis can explain each step. I really kind of struggle to get onto this step. Each one is very strong for me. I'm more technical person, doer. It's not speaking or talking. You can tell I'm not that kind of person. I just cannot. So I'm good on a doer. I would say I would do best, just do something. And I will definitely want to do something, but it's kind of communication part is difficult. What I'm trying to say in summary is for me, implication is very stressful. I don't know if this is worth it. I start even thinking this is worth it. Because maybe just couple of years. Legally, I can live with four people, unrelated. That's legally. So far, everything CO, the clearance of occupancy is there. I probably just added 2 more person. Is that worth it? 2 more person. Can you tell me from financial perspective, it doesn't really gain that much, as compared to this. So it's just for me. That's my. Thank you, to bring this up.
All set, Brian?
Yes.
Ann Brockelman?
Madam Chair, I'll share with everyone what I think. I mean, I did come to this meeting prepared to vote in favor of the special permit, and the discussion has confirmed, my leanings. I think, with all due respect to the mayor's office, I'm comfortable moving ahead, approving this one case, and thanking Mr. Yang for calling for bringing forward his case and bringing this to the attention of the city, because we've had different cases, many things, zoning, where the case is ahead of the zoning regs. And we've often it's been put upon us to delay or, act in ways beyond the confines or the parameters of zoning or current zoning, because the city is continuing to research, continuing to review, which is great. But I don't feel like Mr. Yang should be put in grave hardship for that. Now, on the other hand, I'm glad this has caught the attention of the mayor's office, because it always seemed reckless to me to say more than 4 and no limit, right? More than 4 and the sky's the limit. So it just did seem like a zoning reg that required more thinking or more parameters, which is why we're all uncomfortable, because we saw the number of bedrooms are 8 rooms, it could be 16 people, and it's one project, but whole neighborhoods, if this happened, it does change the fabric of neighborhoods, and we should at least understand what those implications are. But at this point, I'm comfortable approving just one project, knowing that planning is looking at this phenomenon, to, you know, for lack of a better word. Though there will be more, right? Tufts needs to deal with housing, but it just seemed like more than 4, and then the sky's the limit seems broad, broader than what we should be responsible for, the ZBA. This definition of group living as it's defined currently.
Okay. Well, I still had some questions tonight that I wanted answered, and some of them were, and I was willing to go with approving it, but I had some reservations. And I really think that the new administration and the counselors are really looking into this housing issue and a few other things, affordable housing and stuff like that. So I would still want to wait and see what's coming down, because I see if they straighten it out, and he's saying in a month, if they don't do it in a month, we can still go forward and vote. And if the majority wants it, we can approve it. But if they come out and say, oh, look, this isn't going to be an issue anymore because we know all the questions we asked, they have answers for now. The size of the room, how many in there, how many in a room, like we say, 4 turned to 6, could turn to 12, you know, all that stuff. So I think it's a new zoning, new regs, and I would want to see what the development crew and the councilors and stuff have to say about it. But I would ask the city to do this in a timely fashion. That's the message I would want to send back to our executive director who came here tonight, that we respect your request and we're willing to wait, you know, another either the first week in February or the second meeting. But at the end of the day, we want to take care of this man in this situation, and that we're leaning towards the approval of it, and we want some answers because we want to move forward. And that's our staff people, be it Andrew or Charlotte or Emily, when they go back to their meetings with the executive director, say, you know, the zoning was willing to honor the request, but they'd like us to really fast track this and have some answers for the first or second week in February, and that's it. Do you understand what I'm saying, Andrew? You see what Ian's saying, you know, Brian?
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
Zach,
Chair.
gee whiz, we approve the guy now, then we hold his hands. They tie his hands at the end for him to sell it, you know, or sell the house as is to somebody to let them move forward with the project. You know, by that time, the neighborhood's worked out all their kinks and everything. I don't want the guy to come back in 2 years from now, you know, and check with inspectional services or the police department with their parties. That's crazy. We're not nannies, you know, to do that. We either trust the man, he's going to run it, or he's not. And if the board doesn't want to tie it to the property, you know, to the owner, that's fine with me. That's why we discuss things. We hash them out to questions, not to blame. So if we're going to see what the rest of the board wants to do tonight, but if we honor the request of the city, then I, as the chair, expect you and Charlotte and Emily, the rest of you guys, to go back at your meetings and speak to our executive director, who's just came back on board. Do you understand? Have you heard the conversation, sir? Do you understand what we're saying? We want to, you know, we're willing to honor your request, I think. I haven't polled the board yet, but we'd really like you guys to get on it so we can move forward.
Madam Chair, I hear you loud and clear. We're asking for 2 meetings from now, no more than that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other comment you'd like to make, sir? No, okay, great. And you still had your hand up. You have more comments you want to make?
I guess, to conclude my thoughts, Mr. Galligani, is your office reviewing this case, or you're starting a study of group living throughout Somerville, in which case I think it's a 6-month, year-long study, not a 2-week, 4-week study. That's my concern. In which case, you let one go and then the city comes up with a comprehensive policy. We want to encourage them, we want to regulate them more. I just feel like it's not a 4-week undertaking. If I don't know if I'm understanding, or please let me know if I'm not understanding this.
Through the chair, I hear your concerns, and we have been doing policy development over the last few months already, so we've got a head start, and this is happening in that context. And so we want to take a look at this project as it relates to the policies under development. And I'm confident in when I say give us two cycles of the zoning board, that's all I'm asking for, and we will have some recommendations or some clarifications and possibly some clarity on this, so that you're able to make a definitive decision 1 month from now, or whenever your 2 successive meetings from now is.
Okay, so we're saying not on the 1st and not even on the 15th. We'll go to the March 1st meeting.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte speaking. I just want to note that our next meetings are January 18th, February 1st, February 15th, and then March 1st. So 2 meetings would be February 1st.
February 1st would be fine.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for speaking up. I appreciate it. Okay, so is that the pleasure of the board? You folks willing to wait till February 15th? I don't see any hands. I'm willing to go to the 15th.
Yes.
CISA is too.
Sure.
Ian is. Brian?
You might lose this case. That's all I got to say. Is if I understood what Mr. Yang was saying, you might lose the case. So that is, he'll withdraw ask for withdrawal.
I would strongly suggest to him not to withdraw until he speaks to us on the 15th. Mr. Yang? Mr. Yang?
Yes.
Hello. We would like to continue this to the 15th of February. The city's working on some of the questions we had. They have some answers already that would be better suited citywide and for the area. Would you allow us to continue till the 15th and not do anything till you come to that meeting that night?
What consequences, like Brian just asked me, so what consequences from the perspective of board member and administration perspective for this, like a 1.5 month, basically? We're talking about February, like 1.5 months. So what kind of consequences from that waiting? What can I expect from it?
Well, you're willing, Mr. Cook feels that you might withdraw. I'm asking you not to withdraw till you hear what's on the table on February 15th. And at that time, you could withdraw. You don't want to withdraw if something might come in your favor, you go forward and prosper and do what you want to do. But if you wait till at least the 15th, you'll hear what we have to say and hear what the vote might be.
Actually, my question.
Recommend a lot of things, but it comes down, your case is up on the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we're hoping we'd all come together with a real positive program.
So my question actually was not about Mr. Cook mentioned. I said it's waiting for 1.5 months. What can I expect from it?
I don't know.
Like so far, I've been doing everything to follow the ordinance, and each step we get evaluate. Is this doable? Is this doable? Is this okay? And I follow each step. And so far, it seems like every step is recommended. It should proceed. Until right now, we're feeling what kind of research I can provide. I'm willing to do whatever I can to help an administration or anything like that for the city. Because like I mentioned, this city is a really highly educated place. It's a good place. I like to live here.
Mhm.
I live here more than 1 year now. It's a little bit because I bought it. And I would like to, but something I'm here. Actually, like I just mentioned, my case is just one case. There may many other cases come out. Why not just give me one case? I've been waiting. I've been doing this for more than 6 months. Why not give this? With condition, of course. Let's say 1 month or 2 months from now, if administration has some different idea, and they can say, well, they can take it out. I'm fine too. But that be, yeah, seems like Mr. Graminsky have something to say before I continue.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Mr. Graminsky? Your
Yes, thank you,
hand's up.
Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask if the board will be taking public comment this evening for this project.
Not at this point. Unless you feel, do you have a lot of people that you have listed?
No, obviously
saying
that's that.
Now, so I rather just go forward. They can send in emails. Anybody has comments that's listening on board. I mean, I don't want prohibit it per se, but I'm just saying it's fruitful at this point right now because we're not going to vote right now. We're either going to vote to continue or whatever. So I think with the people that are on board that are listening that had this education now, they could send an email to the planning and zoning, and the city as well will be able to digest, a group of the committee or whatever's looking at this, as well as we will. You'll get forwarded to us as well. So I would say, I hope I'm not saying the wrong thing, but I would say for us to listen to Mr. Yang and then move forward tonight with what we're going to do for action. Does anybody have a comment on that?
Well, Madam Chair, I mean,
Yes, Brian.
If we're going to vote in favor of a continuance, and I thought it was going to be February 1st, not February 15th, but
No, February 15th.
okay. But in any case, I'm just expressing as a single member that I would hope that the mayor's office and the administration would reach out to Mr. Yang, make sure they understand the burdens that have been placed on him. He's done everything he's been asked to do. City staff has been responsive to the questions of the board. And some members are ready to go. So we don't want this to get dragged down any further and have the city administration convey to Mr. Yang that they understand the situation he is in and that they'll seek to have it all resolved at the meeting on the 15th or whichever meeting it is that is brought back to the board.
Okay. Okay, so Andrew, are you comfortable with us advising everybody to do emails for us so we can expedite this evening?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's what you, the board decides, not
Okay.
staff.
Okay. Does the board concur with me saying they can send in any emails they have and we'll see copies of them and then the city can see them as well? Okay, their heads are shaking yes. So that's number one. Number two, yes, Emily.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to note a process issue. I just want to make sure that the board did note to the public that the public hearing is being continued, so it is not being closed
No,
at this time.
thank you. No, it's absolutely staying open for the next meeting and also for all their emails to keep coming. But you're right, it will be open at the next, it'll still be open at the next meeting. Thank you for making that public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, you look like you want to say something? Oh, he just went out. Okay, so should we go for, yes, Ann?
Madam Chair, would Mr. Yang have to request a continuance.
Continuance,
From Mr.
yes,
Yang.
right. Mr. Yang, hi. The process is I can't request the continuance for you. You have to ask for it yourself. Are you willing to ask for a continuance until February 15th? And you'll continue to work with Andrew and the city officials?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
verbally at this moment, I do. But I
Great.
like to know a little bit more. Like what kind of a thing I'm expecting. So far, it's not quite clear to me. So
I
far.
get it. Let Andrew's got his hand up and he's your go-to guy. Andrew, what's your hand up for?
I just wanted to say, Chair Fontano, is that you can continue this case. You just can't close the public hearing without public comment.
Oh, really? I always thought we had to have the applicant request that. Thank
No,
you.
you can as a board as long as the hearing's continued.
Oh, great. And you're talking to Mr. Yang. Will you keep in touch with the man on what's
Absolutely.
going on?
Staff is here for him.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
We are.
So we're going to take a vote, Mr. Yang, that we're going to continue till February 15th. And you are welcome to keep calling and working with the city folks in the planning and with Mr. Gaminsky, okay? Okay. And Brockelman, would you please make a motion?
Yes, in the case of 42 to 44 Hamilton Road, P&Z, case number 22-111, I make a motion to continue this request for a special permit for group living principal use until, did we say February
15,
15,
yes. 2023.
2023?
May I have a second on the motion, please?
Second,
Seconded by Brian Cook. All in favor, yay or nay when we go around? Cesar Daglian,
Yay.
Brian Cook,
yay.
Zachary Zemremba, Ann Brockelman,
Yay.
and Susan Fontano, yay. Let the record show the motion carries unanimously. See you back here on February 15th, Mr. Yang. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. See, I'm Italian. I still have these tongue twisters. Gary.
Galagani.
Galagani. Okay, I got that. Galagani. Thank you. Okay, next case tonight is 299 Broadway. Who's
This
here?
is Charlotte
that-
speaking.
Hi,
I
Charlotte.
will work on promoting all of the members of the applicant team.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Dash. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and all of you. Nice to see you.
Same here.
So I guess
So-
for part two, for purposes of promoting who's going to be presenting tonight,
Yeah.
would be Tim Love, Mr. Graminsky, Josh Cohen, Jeff Graminsky, Josh Cohen, Randy Hart, and Damian Chaviano. But I would like to just introduce myself first, Attorney Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street, representing the applicants, Mark Development LLC, Beacon Community Services LLC, and Rise Together LLC for the 299 Broadway project, which, as you may know, is the old Winter Hill Star Market Walgreens site. We have others here who are not presenting, but just to tell everyone who's here, because we may get into them, would be Robert Korf, Damian Chaviano, and Adam Benjamin and Scott Lombardi from Mark Development. Josh Cohen and Leanne Hanfield Curtin are here from Beacon Communities. Herbie DeVerne from Rise Together. Tim Love, John Palazzolo, and Jeff Geisinger from UTIL. And the architect, Brent McDonald, is from Nutter. He's 40B counsel, and Randy Hart from VHB, who's our mobility and parking consultant. So we gave you a 40B project overview on December 14th. And tonight we're going to be reviewing the building related issues, which are namely the mobility, building design, sustainability, and affordability. And at the January 18th meeting, we will be back to you for a third time to review these civic spaces, namely the Pocket Plaza on Broadway and the Pocket Park on Sewell Street. And then hopefully we will end up with a vote on February 1st, but we'll see how things go. I guess, unless there were any preliminaries, Madam Chair, we have a presentation to go through the sort of a skim through those building related issues that I outlined and then find out what questions there are.
Okay, go on.
Tim Love.
And I think Adam Benjamin is going to share his screen.
Yes, Adam Benjamin is driving the slides, but Tim Love from UTL Architects is going to be starting the presentation regarding building design.
Madam Chair, Board, happy to be here. I'm going to go through the slides relatively quickly, just in the interest of time and to gauge your interest at Q&A at the end. I also want to provide, as Adam's pulling up the slides, an overview of the order that we're going to address the issues. I'm going to talk about the design of the buildings first and address some of the waivers we're asking for and the rationale for them. Randy Hart is then going to go through some of the parking and transportation mobility issues, and a combination of Josh Cohen and I think Damien are going to be discussing the unit mix and the level of affordability of the project, both building A and building B, and as a kind of composite picture of the project. So that's the agenda that I just went through. Next. In terms of the buildings, I don't have to go through this list. I'll just launch right into it, but I wanted to focus specifically on the design of the buildings as part of the presentation, and also convey the feedback that we've been getting from the UDC and the city staff. What you're going to see is the culmination of 3 UDC meetings and a series of responses from them, design suggestions, big and small. I'll point some of those out, and then land on those zoning waivers that specifically address some of the building design issues. Okay, next. Just an overview of the site. I think everybody on the board knows it. This is a view from the inbound lane on Broadway looking across at the site. It spans from the Liquor Mart all the way to the former Star Market. And as you'll see in this photograph and the next one, next please, the biggest challenge from a design standpoint was dealing with the grade change from Temple Street, the cross street at the north end of the site, Grant Street at the south, and then the differential in grade from Broadway back to Sewell Street. It's not a simple grade, it warped in a way, and a lot of our site planning efforts were focused on making a fully accessible route from Broadway through to Sewell Street, and I'll explain how that works next. As we discussed in the overview in mid-December, the project is pinned down and organized by a public realm move that includes a civic plaza on Broadway. You can see at the bottom of this graphic, and Sewell Park, which is a new pocket park proposed on Sewell Street, and a publicly accessible pedestrian street or walkway that we're calling the Muse that connects those two in a kind of dumbbell. And that really organizes the building volumes, our architectural strategy, and our strategy relative to ground floor uses and the facade designs. Next. A lot of care was taken in orchestrating the distribution of uses and ground floor program to really make the project work. You'll see in the kind of blue-gray color proposed retail spaces that both line the Civic Plaza, but march up Broadway as the grade runs up from the low end of the site all the way up to a parking lot that we're providing as a convenience to the existing businesses that are in the white building at the corner. That project is not in our project, but that site access, those diagonal parking spaces and the outlet to Temple Street are part of the project scope and are part of the kind of platting of the project. You'll also see along the Muse residential units. All of the residential units that face the Muse have direct access from the Muse, front doors like townhouses. That's also meant to activate the space and make that space on the cut through, which is a fully accessible cut through at less than 5% slope, feel very public and part of the neighborhood fabric. You'll also see that we have bike parking at grade, the required bike parking required per the zoning code. Each of the buildings has a large bike parking area directly accessible from grade that we're hoping will promote bike ridership and bike commuting as part of the project. And the last feature I want to point out is the Winter Hill Community Room, which faces Sewell Park at the top of the slide. It's been cut off a little bit. That is a community room for the public at large in the neighborhood. It does not have access from the circulation within the building, and it's truly meant to be seen as a flexible space that doesn't belong to the building complex itself. The other thing I want to point out with this slide is that the design, while the building volumes and the massing is complex, is actually comprised of two buildings, Building A on the left, Building B on the right. And we'll talk a little bit about the program mix and how that gets sorted out later. But you should know as an introduction that the building on the left, Building A, is 100% affordable. Beacon Communities is leading the development team for that. And Building B, which is on the right-hand side of this plan, is being spearheaded by Mark Development. That project has a 90%, 10% mix, and we'll get into the details of that program mix a little bit later in the presentation, but just to tee that up. You should also know that all of the ground floor amenities in both buildings are shared by the populations of both buildings. And so whether you're in Building A or Building B, those are accessible to the full population of the project. Next. I should also point out, if you go back, that we're going to be focusing on the open spaces in much more detail at the next ZBA meeting. The last piece about the retail, the Mark Development team is working very closely with Graffito. Graffito's presented at least one of the UDC meetings and a couple of the community meetings. They're kind of retail consultant experts, and their vision for the retail is, next slide, community-focused retail, carefully curated to dovetail into the existing retail and the neighborhood fabric, really to be a resource for the entire neighborhood. And so these are some retail establishments in Somerville that many of you know that are not only capturing the spirit of the kind of retail that's planned here, but even the look and feel of those spaces. Next. We can skip this one. This is an overview of the massing of the two buildings. Building A, again, is on the left. Building B is on the right. You can see how the buildings actually have very complicated configurations because their primary job in terms of urban design is actually to shape the spaces around and next to them. You can see the Civic Plaza facing Broadway, and then the way the buildings kind of dodge and weave to create other very interesting spaces. You'll also see that an effort has been made to take what is functionally two buildings and make them look as much as possible like 6 or 7 buildings. And that's partly driven by the zoning code and required maximum facade lengths, but it's also an intentional urban design strategy because of the existing context along Broadway. Next. This is a graphic, an overview graphic of the way that we've broken down the massing of the two buildings into what looks like actually several buildings. And those are compared directly to the planned footprints of existing apartment buildings along Broadway. And so we spent time looking at the scale and the character of those buildings, the length of their facades to inspire how we kind of slice and dice the building massing to make it look a little bit more organically like a neighborhood of buildings. Next. I'm going to take you now on a tour of the elevations of the two buildings. I wanted to start with the Broadway elevation, which we spent some time and had a lot of discussions with the UDC, I think getting right, which is the facades that meet the back of sidewalk along Broadway have been designed to look like 3 buildings. 2 red brick buildings that create the bookends to the project, a buff brick building, which is the building in Building B that's just to the left of the brick building, and then the space opens up into the Civic Plaza, into the Muse beyond. Next. This gives you a sense of what that massing looks like with the existing buildings at the corner, including the Liquor Mart. You can see on the right-hand side of this view, those building masses stepping up Broadway. And then the way that we've broken down the mass of Building A, also along Temple Street, to weave those building masses into the existing urban fabric and the buildings beyond on Temple. Next. Focusing in on Building A, both Building A and Building B have similar material palettes. One of our goals of the design is to make Beacon's 100% affordable building and the market rate Building B be indistinguishable, have the same level of quality. So both buildings include brick components, especially along Broadway. Brick that's used for the base of buildings, especially surrounding the townhouses along the Muse courtyard, and then a range of colors and patterns of cementitious materials to, again, create different characters around the project. I have an echo for some reason. I'm back. And then if you read this diagram vertically, each of the building masses can be read from the base, the middle, and the penthouse top as a series of kind of sample swatches too. I'm only showing you these so that when I walk you around the elevations, you kind of know what the elevations are representing. Next. So taking a very quick walk around Building A, again, this is the Broadway elevation. Next. Turning the corner onto Temple Street, you see we've ghosted in the existing buildings and we're showing you the building mass as it meets Temple Street. That's the main entrance lobby to Building A. I don't know if you can point to that, Adam, there. And then partly because of zoning and partly because of some sculpting we've done, we stepped down the scale of the massing as it meets the other buildings along Temple Street. That's that green volume on the far left. Next. There's a fully accessible public walkway that gets you from Temple Street as a kind of shortcut down to the community room and to Sewell Park. That's the elevation that you're seeing, but otherwise this elevation is really at the backyards of the buildings along Sewell Street. And you can see that green volume, that lower green volume on the left side, kind of turning the corner, and then another building volume that kind of sticks out and points toward the park. At the base of that building is the public community room. And then immediately to the right of that is a place where we've identified a place for a mural, which is kind of part of the design of that. Next. And to give you a sense of what that looks like in perspective, that's that building volume kind of jutting towards Sewell Park, that glassy, welcoming entrance to the community room. And then you can see a kind of hint of the mural, and then that accessible pathway up to Temple Street kind of disappearing stage right behind the existing buildings. You'll hear more about the open space itself at the next CBA meeting. Next. And then tracking around this building, this is an elevation of the Muse looking at Building A, and you can see that rhythm of individual unit entries along the Muse that are articulated like townhouses with their own front doors. Those are the only entrances to those units. Those are only accessible from the Muse, which we think will activate that space. And you can see the relationship of those openings to the entrance to the community room at the bottom of that slope and the Civic Plaza on the left. Again, that's a fully accessible slope under 5%, so it doesn't require any handrails, guardrails, or intermediate landings. Next. And this is just an overview of the massing. Now that I've taken you all the way around the building, you can see it's quite complex. That's partly driven by the boundary within the site between MR6 and MR4, which required the steps downs that we then took advantage of and made a little bit more sculpturally interesting. Moving along to Building B. Building B is downhill. I'm going to take you on the same tour. Next. Same palette of materials. Because we have two building volumes facing Broadway, one of those building volumes is dark red brick, the other is buff brick. And then that volume that's at the back of the civic space and runs down the south side of the Mews are proposed to be terracotta planks. Otherwise, it's the same palette as Building A with a variety of patterns and colors of cementitious panels to get the rest of the expression that we're after. Next. This is a view looking up Broadway with the two volumes of Building B in the foreground, the red brick and the buff brick, the penthouse expressions, and then looking at the kind of nose of Building A, completing that urban elevation and helping to define the civic plaza. Next. And then we'll take you on the same journey again, going clockwise around this building. This is the straight on elevation. You can see how the storefronts and the datum of the ground floor have to step up because of the change of grade. That's one of the variances we're requesting. And then next slide. This is the a perspective view then of how that buff brick volume turns into the civic plaza with that terracotta clad volume defining the back edge, and the way the kind of storefront system wraps around defining where the retail is that I discussed a couple of slides ago. And you can look down the Mews then towards Sewell Park. Next. This is a view looking along the elevation of the Mews, the opposite elevation of the Building A elevation I showed you. Again, we have, although the architectural expression is different, we have a series of townhouse entrances, and you can see the shop front facing the Civic Plaza. And then again, a step down in scale as we move downgrade toward the park and along the back of the Sewell Street properties. I'm flying through this. And then this is the elevation along the back of the Sewell Street properties. We've broken that down into two masses. There's a 3-story elevation there that then tiers up to the higher volumes behind. And again, we're using different cladding strategies to distinguish those as if they're different buildings. And then finally, this is wrapping around behind the properties on Grant Street and stepping up to that brick volume, taking you on the journey all the way around Building B. Next. And that's a kind of massing overview of Building B and our walk around of the way we deployed the materials, done creative things driven partly by the zoning height and setback requirements. But we can answer any questions you have about that. Next. Jeff Geisinger from UTL is now going to give a very high level overview of our sustainability approach for the project.
Hi, everyone. Madam Chair, members of the board, Jeff Geisinger, Director of Sustainable Design from UTL. Thanks for having me. Sustainability is a really important aspect of this project. A key driver for us is to get in alignment with the City of Somerville's goals for becoming carbon neutral by 2050. So we identified the best way to do that is to design the project to the Passive House standard. This is a standard that it drives building heating and cooling loads down, it minimizes carbon emissions, and it maximizes benefits for health as well as environmental quality related to thermal comfort, resilience. So this diagram shows a little bit of a kind of cross-section of the different strategies that we're taking for the Passive House standard, from a robust building envelope that's airtight to high performance windows, all electric and all electric ready, high performance HVAC systems, as well as integrated rooftop solar photovoltaics. I want to emphasize that even though that this standard is very energy focused, we're taking a comprehensive approach to sustainability, and we're looking at everything from water systems to healthy materials, as well as low impact site. And so we are working with the Office of Sustainability and Environment for a waiver for the Passive House certifiability in lieu of the LEED Platinum certifiability. Happy to answer any questions as well.
And just to finish the section off, I think the slides are still in here, Adam. Next. an overview on the waivers. I'm not going to go through these waivers because I don't know if you have the patience for all of these, but I wanted to highlight the reasons that the vast majority of the waivers are being requested. One is the dramatic change of grade along the long axis of the site, and to a lesser degree, the grade changes, especially from Broadway to Sewell as you get closer to Grant Street. We've had to step up and change the first floor to floor heights in ways that make sense in terms of the planning, and so we're asking for some waivers for that. And the ground floor entrance spacing doesn't work along Broadway because the grade rises too fast to have those entrances every 30 feet. We're also asking for waivers to slightly exceed the allowable maximum floor plate when you blend on a prorated basis the maximum floor plates you can have for MR4 and MR6. That's a request that was endorsed by the UDC for both Building A and Building B because of the limited frontage to the project and the need to solve move in and move out and kind of loading operations for the buildings. And then the existing development parcel has no right angles and strange configuration that includes a little neck that runs out to Grand Street and other idiosyncrasies. So that whole list of things is just the site that we're dealt. So I just wanted to point out the existing site presented 90% of the rationale for the ask. It's also true with Building B, just some of the details are different. So the reason and the range of waivers we're requesting for Building B categorically are the same. And so I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Randy now.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Randy Hart. I'm a principal with VHB. We are the transportation consultants on the project. I'm going to talk about a couple aspects of our work. But before I do, I want to give you some site context as it relates to the City of Somerville transit area map. The site is outlined in red in the center of the graphic, and we are in zone 11. We are a half mile from the transit, and we are on the northern side of Broadway. Next slide, please. So one of the aspects of our work was to assess parking in the neighborhood. And we did a very detailed parking assessment. We consulted with mobility prior to doing the work and got buy-in as to what we did, where we did it, when we did it, and how we did it, et cetera. But basically what you see in front of you, the site is in the center of the graphic, and there's two circles. The interior circle shows an approximate 5-minute walk shed to the site. The outer circle shows an approximate 10-minute walk shed to the site. On the interior, there's about 1,776 on-street parking spaces. In the 10-minute walk shed, that increases to about 2,583. And we went every block within this entire walk shed area and looked at the number of parking spaces that exists, what the regulations were in every area, and we have that all built into an app base that very clearly and cleanly shows us exactly what the parking situation is in terms of what's available and what the restrictions are. Next slide, please, Matt. So we did observations during 4 critical times. We went out on a typical weekday in May, and we looked at parking, street by street between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. We then did 2 weekday evenings, which is when the parking is at its most critical level. We did 2 times in May from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. And we did that twice, as I said, both in May. And we also looked at a Saturday midday between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. And all the counts were conducted on non-holiday weeks while the local schools were in session. There were no major community events that could have impacted the typical parking demand during the observations. And the observations were also not conducted on an evening when street cleaning was planned for the following day. So we wanted to get as normal conditions as we possibly could. Next slide, please, Adam. So these are just simple bar charts showing the various observations that we did. And the bar on the left is the weekday time frame. And what it shows in blue is the number of spaces within the 5-minute walk shed that were occupied. The gray shows the number of spaces that were available. And up top, it shows what the vacancy rate was. So there were 53% of the 1,776 parking spaces were available during that particular time frame. As you might expect during the evening, it's a little different. The available or the amount of park spaces, 1361 versus 415, or a 23% vacancy rate. Similar on the other weekday evening counts, 24% vacancy rate, and then the Saturday showed about a 39% vacancy rate during that period. Next slide. So looking at the 10-minute walk shed, it shows us that we had, up to 1,315 spaces available during the weekday daily time frame, 51% vacancy. We had 25% vacancy during the first evening on a weekday. We had similar result the second time, a 26% vacancy rate. And then the Saturday midday showed about a 35% vacancy rate. And so, the real takeaway here is that, yes, the evening is definitely the most critical for parking, as you would expect. But even during that period, there's significant parking within the 10-minute walk shed, 637 spaces the first weekday night, and then 665 the second one. So quite a bit of parking. It may not be exactly where you want it when you want it, but there is space available for use. Next slide, please, Adam. So in terms of mobility, we're currently working with the mobility folks to finalize our approach to certain things in this area, but we thought we'd put some of it out there for you to consider. The project is requesting that 50% of the market rate units, or 78 units, be eligible to apply for resident on-street parking permits. This will be in place to 2040, at which time we would work with the mobility director to assess the actual demand of the building and reestablish the cap going forward. And we suggest that the residents of the affordable units will be eligible to apply for a hardship waiver like other projects in Somerville, allowing for a residential parking permit. Next slide, please. To reduce the project's overall traffic impact, we're proposing a robust set of TDM measures aiming to reduce the demand side of car usage. Some of the measures we've thrown out there and currently discussing with mobility include residents of the market rate units that seek a residential permit pass will be required to pay a monthly fee. The fee would go towards additional TDM measures that would be agreed to between the proponent and the director of mobility. The project will fund and install a city-owned bike share station on site, most likely. New residents would receive an MBTA Charlie card worth $90 stored value, and that would be capped at 2 adults per unit. New residents will receive a 1-month Blue Bike membership, capped again at 2 adults per unit. Next slide, please. And for commercial spaces greater than 2,000 square feet, employers will offer a 90% subsidy for full-time employees for the Zone 1A transit passes and Blue Bike memberships. And at least one car share vehicle would be provided in Lot 3, adjacent to the site. And there would be a TDM coordinator that's responsible for implementation of the plan. And if TMA is available in the area, we would certainly become members as part of the project. And that's a very quick overview of a few aspects of the transportation work. If there's any questions tonight, I'll try to do my best to respond to those. I think I'm going to hand it to Josh at this point.
I think Damien.
Oh, Damien. Okay, sorry. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, and I'll be quick. Good evening, Damien Chaviano with Mark Development. I just wanted to take a minute because we do recognize there are a number of concerns related to the parking waiver, and it's something we've spent a lot of time on, as you can see here. We've tried to get creative to really tie to the summer vision and how can we disincentivize car usage going forward. The discussions are ongoing with mobility, but we are also the first to admit this is not a perfect solution. We recognize that our previous concept under an 80-20 market rate affordable housing concept probably provided a better parking outcome, not only for those of you who are concerned about the parking situation, but quite frankly, for both our lender and our investor community. This is a big issue that we're trying to wrestle with. And quite frankly, we don't have it perfect. I would just ask you, as you consider this project, And I think you're about to hear in a minute, the degree of which a reduction in parking is allowing for a pretty unique offering in the context of affordable housing, both with the number of units and I think just as importantly, if not more importantly, the depth of the tiers of the income levels. We would ask you, not to allow perfection to be the enemy of the good as we work through this. And we do think there will be an outcome with the help of mobility as we move forward. So with that, Josh, if you can walk through the housing offering, that would be great.
Absolutely. Nice to see all of you tonight. Next slide, please. So the thing that has made this proposal just so thrilling for us at Beacon Communities and this partnership with Mark Development and Rise Together is taking what was a great mixed income development originally proposed and being able to reconfigure it as something with much more affordability and much deeper affordability. So we prepared this chart just to show that zoomed out change between Mark Development's original concept here and what we're now able to do together as a team, Beacon, Rise, and Mark. So we've gone from 20% of the units being affordable to 46% of the units being affordable. And even that obscures the fact that because the affordable units that we're building in Building A skew towards 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units, the square footage across the site is even 53% affordable in the proposal that's in front of the ZBA. So we've taken what was a great opportunity to build a mixed income development on Broadway and done something that has an incredible amount of affordable housing for the city of Somerville. Next slide. So the unit mix here, site-wide, there are 132 affordable units out of 288 total. 115 of those are in Building A, 17 are in Building B. There's a mix of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s. Building A will have just 1s, 2s, and 3s. Building B has a little bit of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s. And so we do site-wide have this skewing towards 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. Again, creating fabulous affordable housing opportunity for families in Somerville. Next slide. And as I mentioned, we're going to be serving a wide range of incomes here at 30%, 60%, and 80% AMI. So in Building A, approximately 14% of the units are going to be for residents, households at or below 30% of the area median income. The remainder of those apartments will be for residents at or below 60% of the AMI. And then in Building B, 10% of the units in that building, 17 units total, will be available for households earning at or below 80% of the area median income. So again, across the site, we're going to be serving this very, very wide range of incomes from folks at market levels to folks at the extremely low income level of 30% AMI. Next slide. It's also important to note, as Tim was taking us around the buildings and looking at the ground floors, as he mentioned, these ground floor amenities will all be shared between the residents of buildings A and B. So both buildings will have full on-site management suites. Both buildings will have community rooms, resident lounges. There'll be a fitness center in Building B, business center, the package services, bike storage in both buildings. And again, all of those ground floor amenities will be shared between the two buildings. Next slide. We also wanted to mention, as Tim was pointing out, the facades of these two buildings will be indistinguishable. It's important to recognize that the market rate units in Building B will have a market rate finish level. the affordable apartments in Building A will use a different finish package. There are certain things we focus on in affordable housing that are about being careful about upfront costs as well as long-term maintenance costs. So things like countertops and appliance package will be different in Building A. That said, we achieve a very high level of design. We're very proud of the apartments that we deliver. When people tour these buildings, there will be no emotional difference between the quality of the apartments in Building A and Building B. The layouts in Building A will be fabulous. There will be a different finish package. We share here a couple of photos from affordable housing work we've done all over Eastern Massachusetts, just to give a sense. These are very, very high quality units, but the finish package will be different between the market rate units and the affordable units in Building A.
Thank you, Josh. So Adam Dash again. Madam Chair, that's the end of our presentation. I appreciate you putting up with us for a second time. So tonight again, we're talking building design, sustainability, affordability, and mobility/parking. And at the next meeting on the 18th, we can get into issues with regard to the open space, civic spaces. So if there are any questions or comments from the board, we have our entire team here ready to go.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Dash. So the board, if you'll raise your hand if you have any questions. Also, I have a question on procedure tonight. Do we have public waiting to speak like they did the last meeting? Ms. Hutchings?
Madam Chair, I believe so. I will let Charlotte manage the public comment.
Okay. Would the board, does anybody on the board have some questions right now? If you do, raise your hand, please. If not, we can let the public ask some questions and then we can chime in as well. So the board, I'm looking for a hand. Yes, Brian Cook. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
All right, let's try that again.
Perfect.
I have lots of questions and some of them drill down into details that we probably don't want to necessarily get into tonight. One set is about the mobility study, and another set is about the interior designs. And since we just finished with the interior designs, just one small question about the reference to the different finished packages in the two buildings. There are some affordable units in Building B. Are those going to be of the same finished package as the market rates in Building B? It just wasn't clear to me about that.
Yeah, sure. I can take that one, Mr. Cook. The Building B finishes will be the same for both the market and the affordable units.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I remind everybody, anybody who answers a question from the presenting group, don't forget to say your name because this is all on tape. So we have to know who's answering the question. Okay. Brian, go on.
Okay, then the second question about the division. And I understand the partnership that's been developed and the concentration of the types of affordability in Building A versus Building B, but there's been some public concern about the segregation, if you want to call it, in income levels between the two buildings. I understand that all the amenities will be available on the ground floor for both buildings, but has there been any further thought about the, I don't know what else to call it, but psychological impact of the concentration of the lower income levels in Building A? And I understand that may be a function of the partnership, but has there been any further thinking about the implications of that division in the income levels between the two buildings.
It's Adam Dash. I mean, Mr. Cook, I don't know if we said this before, but there is an issue with the financing on the affordable side. And Josh, I think, can get into that as to why we're doing it this way. It wasn't originally the plan, but
Right.
because these are going to be financed separately and financed through some public funding and such, that Mr. Cohen can explain that it had to be broken out this way. But I think, as Mr. Love explained, the architect, when he went through it, the idea was for this all to function as one community with the shared amenity spaces and such. It just has to be done this way. Josh, I mean, maybe you can give more color to that.
Yeah. This is Josh Cohen from Beacon Communities. Mr. Cook, it's a great question. We think about it all the time as we're advancing the plans here and thinking about the operations of the buildings. From our perspective, by splitting the affordable housing and the market rate housing, we're able to access this whole world of affordable housing financing and do many more affordable units at much deeper affordability levels by doing them in a single building. Mark Development is able to access its market rate capital sources to build its housing. And so, we think it creates this fabulous mixed income site. And to mitigate concerns about, why is all the affordable housing over here and the market rate housing over here? The designs that UTIL has created really, first and foremost, I think, address most of our concerns that, from the sidewalk, you will not be able to know. The ground floor retail that will be part of both buildings will, again, create a neighborhood, create a site, and make it clear that there's not that building and this building, that it's all one. When we look at the Sewell Park, the Civic Plaza, it's easy to imagine, again, that this will be a community and viewed as part of the neighborhood, both buildings together, knitted in with the rest of Broadway. And so we again, think a lot in terms of ongoing operations, access to these ground floor amenities, all the ways in which we can make sure that residents in Building A feel just as much a part of the community as residents in Building B. But from our perspective as affordable housing developers and advocates for affordable housing, we think this is a very strong outcome.
Thank you.
Then I have a number of questions about the mobility study, but I know there'll be a lot of public comment about that the partnership's going to want to address. So let me concentrate it on one question, which is there's a reference in the bullet points to there being a fee for the market rate residents who will be eligible for the parking permit program, and how that fee might generate some funds for other kinds of mobility options. And I was curious whether there's been further discussion that you're not necessarily ready to present as specific options about how those funds might be used. So for example, I was thinking after hearing already from the public about the problem of accessing things like grocery stores, and even the Gilman Square T-stop, it's a stretch for some people. So the possibility, for example, of using those funds for a shuttle bus system or something of that nature. I'm just curious about where your discussions have gone with respect to how you might make use of the opportunities that might come from the fee structure for the permit parking.
It's Damien.
Yeah, so Mr. Cook, this is Damien Chaviano with Mark Development. We are still in the very early stages of those conversations. I think conceptually, the discussion has been focused that the fund should be used for additional TDM measures, whether they're specific to the project, whether they're specific to residential or commercial. We've had a number of conversations, but we're not quite there yet to unveil, further thoughts. So I'd ask that you give us till the next meeting and we can come back with more feedback. And I think Mobility will be issuing something prior to that next discussion. But we've been more focused on the concept of how do we disincentivize folks from applying for resident parking and keeping that cap at 50% or less, and really tying to summer vision. So that was really the genesis of where we are today. And I think you'll be hearing a lot more on it shortly.
Great. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank
This Adam Dash. And in addition to having to pay the city for the parking permit, just to be clear, this is an additional fee that we would impose upon the folks who want them to sort of make them not want them.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on our board? No. Okay. If Charlotte's there or Emily, who's ever going to handle the public portion?
This is Charlotte speaking. So for all members of the public, I'm going to have a 2-minute timer that will be on the screen and let you know how much time you have to speak. There are 2 ways of letting me know that you want to speak. Way number 1 is raising your hand, which I see some of you have figured out already. And then way number 2 is sending a chat message, just saying that you want to speak. We can't accept like substantive comments through the chat, but if you want to speak and you just want to message us, that works. Give me 1 moment to make sure that I'm sharing my screen, and then we will start going through public comment. Okay. First up, we have Hala Jadhala. You are unmuted, but you may need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hala, can you hear us?
No, I'm not unmuted. Now I'm unmuted.
There you go.
Sorry. So my name is Hala Jadala, and I live at 66 Hall Ave. And my family owns property at 11 Langmaid. Your ideas are getting a little bit better with the parking. I was thinking the shuttle idea, I like that that Brian mentioned that maybe you don't have to run the shuttle all day long, but at peak hours, like trying to get to the Gilman T stop or to get to Sullivan Station, but mostly to the Gilman T stop. And at peak hours on the weekends, certain hours on the weekends, you could run a shuttle for certain people to Stop and Shop. But also I was thinking incentive for them to walk most of the time, which Somerville said it wants to be a walkable city. Give them the little push carts that we used to use when we used to go from the Clarendon Hill projects to Johnny's Food Master to put our groceries in. They can push that a little bit. It's not that heavy, and we'll get some exercise at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Alexandra Holmes. You are unmuted.
Thank you. I live at 24 Miller Street. As appealing as the idea of affordable housing on such scale is, and the gesture towards sustainability, one worry we haven't talked about yet is the construction of the project. I've been told that Mark Development has history of hiring cheating contractors, and that's a real worry. If we can't have a responsible construction site, then it won't be a good construction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Mary Dahlgren. You are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mary Dahlgren. I live at 26 Marshall. I wanted to thank Mr. Cook for bringing up the parking issues again. I think we need to emphasize that the parking study was done in winter, or not done in winter, it was done in the summer. So I don't think it accurately reflects wintertime parking struggles or parking struggles during street cleaning. I also really think that the city needs to step up. I really like this plan. I'm sick of the dead Star Market at the end of my street, but I think the city needs to step up with a plan to address the safety issues for pedestrians and bikers, especially in terms of crossing Broadway to get down Marshall to get to the new Gilman stop. It's fabulous that we have that stop, but there's no parking there's no crosswalk plan for where the Muse lines up with this new development. That should be addressed. People always jaywalk across Broadway to get down Marshall. It's going to increase as more and more people are trying to get to Gilman. And then also the pedestrian crosswalks are not well lit. And we know that there's been issues with fatalities throughout in Western Somerville with pedestrian crossings. So I'm really concerned about that. I think the city needs to step up with that. And I also think that one thing that's not been mentioned, but is a major concern, is during construction, is there going to be any kind of protection as the soil that has asbestos in it is disturbed? That's it.
Thank you.
Next in line is Jennifer Civitella Hilario. You are unmuted.
Hello. Jennifer?
We will come back to them. Next up is Marianne Wallace. Marianne, you are unmuted. We will also come back to them. Next up is Seth Hurwitz. Seth, you are unmuted.
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation to the folks from Mark Development and Beacon Communities. My name is Seth Hurwitz. I live at 12 Maple Avenue in Somerville, and I just want to speak out in full support of the proposal that Mark Development has put forward to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Parking is certainly a concern for a lot of nearby residents, but at the same time, we are in the middle of a housing crisis. We have had this empty lot next to our home for 15 years now, and we would really love to see it develop into something that is sustainable, that gives back to the community, that provides us with a beautiful open space and interesting commercial opportunities for small businesses. Mark Development has done excellent work doing outreach with the community, and they have taken the time to meet with folks individually to talk about their concerns. And I trust that the vision that they have for the site is going to be a tremendous benefit for the community. And I think it'll be truly devastating if the request for these waivers is denied. I don't think we'll ever see a proposal that is quite as powerful in how it will tackle climate change and the housing crisis and also walkability. So I would strongly urge the Zoning Board of Appeals to approve their requests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Stephen Moore. Stephen, you are unmuted.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Stephen Moore. I live at 36 Sewell. Beyond being involved heavily in climate action locally, and I'm a direct abutter to this project as well. I want to, tip my cap to the design team in general, who have been incredible in reaching out to various members of the community in their various pockets of expertise. I want to talk on one point quickly. There was a lot of focus on materiality differences between the affordable housing unit, 100% affordable housing unit, and the market rate. It's worth noting, and it's one of my areas of expertise, is passive house consultancy. The performance levels from a climate change and otherwise is a very critical issue here. Both of those buildings will perform at the highest levels, and the occupancy comfort levels will be unsurpassed by any other standard. And it's why going for passive house is such a critical achievement to this project. Because from that standpoint, these buildings will be replicated in their performance values. And in general sustainability, measure, durability of materials will be a part of that. And so the idea that you simply be choosing cheap materials versus, higher standard materials, I think will be a bit of a misnomer. You want durability, particularly in selections of materials. So again, I want to applaud the project team. From the parking standpoint, it's one of the critical components to this parking issue is whether or not people believe the study or not. Data is data. The other part of it is, very quickly, I have 10 seconds, is the idea of these incentives and trying to get a transit-oriented development. That's all.
Thank you. Charlotte.
Yes, Madam Chair.
I just want to make a note. I don't want to offend anybody, but some of these folks that are speaking tonight have spoke last week, and they might be adding some new spin, which is good. That's what we want to hear. And we have a whole pile of like 38 or 40 emails that I've gone through with the different names and stuff. So as a courtesy to other folks in your group, be it for or against, I'd love to have some people that haven't spoken or haven't sent any emails in get a chance. So if you're going to speak about the same thing, I'd ask you to please give your fellow neighbor a chance. And if you want to send us an extra email to reiterate your stance or your feelings, we'd appreciate that. So I hope I don't offend anybody, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder. If you have something to say, I want you to say it, but it's just a thought. Thank you very much. Charlotte?
Next up is Crystal H. Crystal, you are unmuted.
Hello. With that in mind, my new and different, as we like to say, comment is the bullet point about robust, airtight envelope of the building really caught my eye. Super excited about many aspects of this project, but I was wondering if the team could speak to how a robust, airtight envelope of the building, how that meshes with potential airborne contagions and pandemics in the future. As we know, climate change has dramatically impacted the likelihood of additional pandemics in the future. And I just wanted to know, and this may require research going back to figure this out. This might not be an in the moment question, but I wanted to hear more about in future how that aspect of the building can be addressed with future pandemic robustness. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Crystal. Briefly before you go, I don't think we caught your full name or email, or sorry, full name or address. Can you state those for the record?
Apologies, and now I'm getting a bunch of notifications. My name is Crystal Huss. I am over on Elm Street in the Porter Square area.
Great, thank you very much. Next up is Andrew Nataganara. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your last name. You are unmuted.
All right, thank you. My name is Andrew Max Natanagara. I live at 17 Quincy Street, and I just wanted to take the time to just give full support for this project. It looks like an amazing project. We are in the middle of a housing shortage statewide and in Somerville, and just seeing this as a small but important step towards addressing that is really encouraging. And especially with the project so close, a 10 to 15 minute walk to this new Green Line stop. And I wanted to echo the prior comment about the need for pedestrian improvements, particularly crosswalks to cross Broadway there, but it's just great looking project and wanted to give full support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next in line is Lily Link. Lily, you are unmuted.
Thank you so much. I've said it before and I'll say it again that I love this project, but my new thing to add is that as someone who lives in the immediate neighborhood, at 12 Maple Avenue. The parking study findings completely gel with my experience living within a few blocks of this development for the past 7+ years. We have always found that there is more parking than is needed, and especially with the new Gilman Square T-stop so close, I really anticipate the parking need continuing to go down. And lastly, I just want to make a request for those running this meeting to adopt the policy of naming the next 3 folks in line to speak at a time so people can prepare. It's that time of night where people are eating dinner while they listen in, putting kids to bed while they listen in. And I think sometimes we hear folks who, you call their name and we don't hear them speak. My guess is that they're probably just on the other side of the room and not able to race over in time because they're not anticipating being next. So I think it would make it a lot easier for folks to be able to be prompt and get their voices heard if they're given a little bit of a heads up that they're up next. So other boards in the city use that system, and I'd really encourage you all to use it as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for the suggestion.
Next up, Councillor Klingon, if you would like to speak now, you may. We don't currently have anyone else indicating that they want to speak.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Jesse Klingon, 33 Puritan Road, Somerville. I'm the Ward 4 City Councilor. I don't have any substantial comments to make right now. I did comment the last time in sort of general terms, and I do plan on commenting in the future. I just wanted to make a few suggestions on, for one thing, to the new members like Mr. Cook, please ask as many questions as you have. This is such an odd situation with there being so many waivers and being so many meetings, but there only going to be one vote, that I think it's important no disrespect to the chair, Madam Chair, I see what you're getting at completely in terms of repeat things, but I actually would ask that we have public comment each one of these meetings, and then additionally, we encourage people to, because there's no specific, we're talking about the things they presented this evening, but if somebody was to come on, if they want to comment on a totally different piece next meeting, it's kind of like we have this really long, wide open comment period that I think should be utilized. I appreciate hearing the comments. I think the one that I just heard from the woman on Marshall Street was awesome about that the sort of natural path of people going down Marshall Street. I think that's something that mobility team, I hope, took notice of. But other than that, I just say it definitely seems like Mark Development has been listening, and I hope they will continue to listen to these comments and adjust and look forward to more discussion. But I would ask that if you see fit, Madam Chair, that each meeting have a public comment, and we encourage comment on anything at any time, simply because it's it just stinks that you guys have been in this meeting already for an hour and some change on one issue that we keep kind of, I know people get fatigued. I get that, and I appreciate that. But this is a really important project to this neighborhood, to the city. So I really want to give it its due diligence. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have currently 3 people with their hands raised. Councillor Wilson, I will unmute you first. If you want to go first or last, just let me know and we can go with that.
I'm fine going last if people would like to go before me.
Great. Then up next we have Marianne Wallace and then Jennifer Civitella Hilario. Marianne, you are unmuted.
Hi, Marianne Wallace. I live on Fremont Street, which is 2 blocks from the project. So I will give credit to Mark Development that they have been listening and been very active in the community meetings. But I also feel there's several issues that still haven't been addressed. Parking is just one piece of it. And when talking about the parking and incentives, and maybe it's not as close, are we looking at the age of residents, or are they parents of young children? Other factors that go into not just getting as close of a parking spot as you want. Also, local hire. What's the traffic going to be like with storefront, new storefront on a place that's been vacant for a long time? Issues around, there's been past issues with different construction companies here. Local hire is a huge thing in Somerville. And then my question really to the board is, any exemptions on these waivers, how does it then affect future development? So Mark Development is looking for a parking exemption. What does that mean for future developments that say they want a parking exemption? I'm just wondering, what does it set the precedence, given that prior to this, we heard a single homeowner hear repeatedly what the precedence of giving him his zoning would mean for other residents that wanted the same zoning. So how would this affect future developments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Jennifer Civitello Hilario. Jennifer, you are unmuted. Jennifer, you may need to unmute yourself. If you are speaking, we are not able to hear you right now. Okay, we will come back to you. Councillor Wilson, you are unmuted. Sorry, now you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, Jake Wilson, Councilor at Large and a neighbor of the project here at 83 Jake Street. I actually hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but after hearing what my neighbor on Marshall Street said about crosswalks, and then what my colleague Councilor Klingon added to that, I just wanted to add my voice for more crosswalks on Broadway. It's currently a pretty long stretch there between crosswalks. It goes all the way, I believe, from Temple, then all the way down to what would basically be around Fellsway West. And you can tell there are desire lines there. There's some strange bricks in the median that no one seems to know why they're there, other than to send the signal to pedestrians to just cut across right there. You see a lot of folks just deciding to just cut across Broadway, not in a crosswalk. And I think we could really, it'd be good to slow down traffic a little more on Broadway. I love the radar feedback signs that have gone in on Broadway recently. And I think breaking that up with some crosswalks, similar to what's been done at Fenwick and Thurston, where that crosswalk was added there. I'd like to see at least one, maybe two of those added just to meet the demand that we're going to see for folks going between this development, if it happens, down Marshall Street toward the Gilman Square T station. So it's all I really had to add about this one. Thanks for doing this. Thanks to everyone who showed up and spoke tonight, and everyone who's following this. And I am very eager to see where we go. Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, at this time, I don't see anyone else indicating that they wish to speak. We can give it another moment.
Were you able to keep the names of the first two or three that they didn't break through? Did you have those names to call out?
Yes, they have all either spoken or indicated that they will email comments instead of speaking tonight.
Okay, well, this is great. We have all our emails. I'm asking for anybody who didn't speak tonight or come out tonight to not to forget to send us the emails. We got, like I said, this packet we got was over 40, and there's a lot of information in there. And so the next meeting, the public portion's still open, and you're willing to come on out and speak and send your emails. Thank you. The board.
Madam Chair.
Is that Adam?
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Klingon, just with another quick comment, just in terms of process. Again, I don't think fully the public understands, and because sometimes it's confusing for me, that there are, like the gentleman said earlier, there's 30 different waivers or variances, and but the comment period is going to be open the entire time. So I think it would be helpful for maybe staff, when we start to talk about this project, when we first get on to 299 at a meeting, to just kind of reiterate that this was discussing this, but that I think, we're taking comments on the whole thing, the whole shebang until the end, because again, it's kind of confusing. People aren't sure if they're supposed to speak on this matter or that matter, because it's So this one long comment period for one vote for many different pieces. So just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you for indulging me. Appreciate it. As always, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Okay, good night.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Dash.
Adam Dash, I just know when we had the last set of neighborhood meetings, we did break them up in this fashion where we had different neighborhood meetings, one on the buildings, one on the open space. So we're just sort of trying to track the same sort of scenario that we've been doing with folks.
Your point?
Oh, my
what-
point
I
being
don't understand.
that we're not that as far as Councilor
When you
Kling
make
is
a
thinking,
presentation,
right? Saying that we're confusing people, and I'm
Yeah.
just saying that we're breaking just for the we're breaking things up in these meetings just the way we broke them up in the neighborhood meetings that we had, and they've actually gone fairly well. And I think people understood you can, we'll talk about open space, for instance, on the 18th. But it certainly is up to you and the board what you want to hear, when you want to hear.
oh no,
We'll be at all the meetings, so.
Yeah, no. The public portion is open until the bitter end and everybody gets to speak. And I don't care if one person gets up and speaks 6 times, but I want people to come up and speak about all different things. If you make your point about the parking in your street, we get it. Send us an email. The questions that came up tonight are so articulate and very intelligent, and everybody's given a lot of thought to what they have to say, and I appreciate it. And I didn't mean to offend anybody. I just wanted to make sure everybody gets a chance. Like even last week, we had, the last meeting, we had all those speakers. It went on and on and on and on. And even at the end, there was 3 more people. We made them speak. So I don't care what meeting, I'll see you in a minute, Mr. Hart. I don't care what meeting we're covering. If you couldn't make the first one, you want to come to the second and speak about another issue, it's still the public forum. You can speak about anything you want at any of these meetings. They're not segregated by issue. And I think that's what you're trying to make the point, that even though you did your neighborhood meetings like that, and you're presenting it to us like that, we're all digesting it, but anybody can speak on anything, any night.
Exactly so, and we'll all be at all the meetings to answer whatever on anything. Yes.
Fantastic. Mr. Hart, you had your hand up, sir.
Ms. Brockelman had her hand up before I did, so ladies first, if I want to be
I'm
a
running the meeting here, Mr. Hart.
gentleman.
I'm trying to.
Just trying to be a gentleman. Real quick, the comments on the pedestrian crosswalks are good ones, and it's something that we're going to take a look at. We'll respond to that.
Great, thank you. Ann Brockelman, please.
Yes, I just want to make sure we understand the administratively, what are we doing in terms of voting? I've heard several times already it's one vote. We've been in other projects.
One vote at the end of the, I think the
one-time vote, but for different waivers.
No.
It's all bundled together. Mr. Dash or staff?
Emily Hutchins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can clarify. And thank you for your question. I think it raises a good point. So this is an application for a comprehensive permit. So that has multiple waivers involved within that permit. So what the board will be doing once all of the information has been provided, once public testimony has been given, once the public comment period is closed, once the board has asked all its questions and addressed all its concerns, is they will be voting on whether to grant the comprehensive permit. And within that, all of the waivers that have been requested. And the board can approve that as is, it can approve it with conditions, or it could deny it. And we as staff, we are currently working very hard on a very thorough staff memorandum, which will include many conditions of approval that are proposed conditions, just like what you saw for Clarendon Hill for that project. So there would be one vote at the end to whether to approve the comprehensive permit, and it would encompass all of the waivers. That is correct.
It's a package deal.
Okay.
Okay, Ann?
One more
Go
thing.
ahead, Ann Brockelman, sure.
Separately, as you heard in the last meeting and the flood of public comments, the number one concern is parking. And I assume the design team understands that. So I would advise you to work more on communicating on those slides. What we saw was some background research, but I think there was, you could do more math for us. Between the building A, building B, I had to add it up myself. How many parking spots max were we thinking? So I would summarize those slides again at some point, and this is for greater public understanding and for us to more easily grasp it. I understand you laid out all your research today with different charts and graphs, but I think a little more work would actually help everyone understand what are you asking for in terms of parking better.
Thank you, Ann. Emily Hutchins, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to speak quickly to that as well, and note that the applicant team is working very closely with the city, with the mobility division in particular, to address mitigation efforts in terms of parking and traffic impacts. The review from mobility is not yet complete, but it's very nearly so. And at that point, they'll be providing comments and that will be incorporated into that staff memorandum. Any additional information will be posted for the board's review for public review. While again, that review is not yet complete, it's still in the process. I'm here, and Mobility Division Director Brad Rawson is here tonight as well, if there are any questions or concerns initially that the board has.
Great. I have a question. How many neighborhood meetings were there? Mr. Dash, maybe you can help me.
Oh my goodness, for over the last 2 years, I believe we had a slide on them, Adam, if you had that slide from the prior overview. We did a lot. We had, in addition to all the Somerville Redevelopment Authority and the Community Advisory Committee meetings, and that we had the two required, obviously the pre and post UDC as part of the project. But before that, we had many more stretching back into the summer of 2021.
Okay.
Where the project was laid out, and they were, I should note, they were all very well attended. We had a lot of good conversation, and the project evolved. As I think we'd said that it started as one thing, and 80%, a typical project, not 40B, 80% market, 20% affordable. And then we had a bunch of buildings, and then we had 2 buildings, and then we hit the asbestos, and we didn't have we couldn't do the underground parking because initially we had the underground parking. So it's morphed, and we brought the public along for that whole ride. And I think the councilors have been involved, both Klingon and Wilson, very heavily involved. And I believe Councilor Burnley was at some of those earlier meetings as well. So, yeah, I don't recall the exact number. I'm going to say like 6.
Adam, it's Damian Chaviano at Mark Development. I can help you out here. So neighborhood meetings, we've had 7 in total. And when you combine that with Winter Hill Advisory, the CAC, the SRA, and UDC, we've had 19 total meetings, 7 of which are neighborhood meetings.
Beautiful.
Into the
And as we go forward, we're encouraging the folks that this is their next platform of voice, is speaking at the open part of the meeting.
Right.
Beautiful. Great.
Damian, we also have a project website. Do you want to talk about that? I mean, some of this information is on there as well.
Yeah, and if there's a, I don't know if Zoom, I guess this isn't a Zoom, we can send that around our link. What we do is we post all the materials as well as the meetings from the website, from these presentations, so that folks can review the video. I don't know if we can send around the URL if there's a chat feature.
You could say what it is, maybe.
This is Charlotte speaking. Damian, if you want to message me the URL, I can send it to everyone who's currently in attendance.
Great, we'll send it to you right now.
I would also note, Madam Chair, Adam Dash, again, that the city also has on their website recordings of the neighborhood meetings and such, and these other meetings that have been held. So all of that's there in addition to the materials and slides that we had shown at all the meetings. If anyone wanted to go back 2 years and watch everything, it's all out there.
Great. Well, I know the whole thing has been very active since its onset. And I know you said about it's well attended, the meetings and stuff. The area's been begging for this for a long time. So I appreciate, all this participation. And it's, you know, I think it's wonderful. So that's, I just want to know what the next portion was going to be. Hold on. There you go. I just want to know for the people listening and viewing in tonight and for other meetings, what's available to them. And this is it. That's the next step. I was just communicating.
And I see Charlotte put in the chat that the URL for our website is 299broadwaysomerville.com for people who may not be on a computer. So the number is 299broadwaysomerville.com is the project website. But again, this is also on the city's website.
Great, thank you. So on the board, anybody else want to say something tonight? For the folks out making the presentation, any of you gentlemen or ladies have something to say? No? Emily, all set?
I'm all set if you are, Madam Chair.
Okay, and Charlotte, there is nobody left to speak in the public portion?
Madam Chair, there was one person who briefly seemed to indicate they might want to speak. Stephen Moore. I can unmute them if we want to do.
Yeah.
One more person. Okay. Stephen, you are unmuted. Give me one moment to pull up the timer. Okay.
Let him go.
You should be able to see the timer now. You're good to go.
It's just a quick note, just to get on the record while we were recording. To Crystal Huff's question regarding air quality within the units, I just wanted to add that, again, one of the great advantages of using Passive House as a tool for these buildings is the incredible indoor air quality that comes with the system. And if anybody would love a tour of what an energy recovery ventilator looks like, they're more than welcome to come to 36 Sewell, and I will show them my system that I installed.
Thank you. Okay. So that's it, Charlotte?
Yes, Madam Chair, that was the only person indicating that they wanted to speak.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for your presentation and your answering the questions and your patience. I know it gets later, but we'll look forward to seeing you at our next meeting, Mr. Dash.
Yes, Madam Chair. The 18th, where we will be discussing the civic spaces, the public Pocket Park and Pocket Plaza.
Great.
That will be our presentation at that point. Yes.
Good. All right, thank you. Well, we'll see you guys then on the 18th.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so let me see if we have anything else on our agenda tonight.
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte speaking.
Yes, Charlotte.
I will note that just for a clean record, we should officially continue them to January 18th.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, could we have a motion, please, for the continuance of 299?
Yes, I make a motion to continue 299 Broadway to January 18th.
Yes. Beautiful. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brian Cook. All in favor say yay or nay. We go around. Zach?
Yeah.
Ann?
Yay.
Cisa?
Cicia.
Cicia. I apologize. With a name like Gorsler, I should understand that.
Yay.
Yay. And Brian Cook?
Yay.
Yay. Let the record show is unanimous. 5 members voting in the affirmative to continue till the 18th of January. Thank you. Does anybody have any other business? No? Charlotte, do we have anything that we've let slip through the cracks?
Nope, that is all of the items on the agenda.
Okay, so without further ado, I hope everybody makes it back to the 18th. I thank everybody for their participation tonight. And I ask the clerk for a motion, please, to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn tonight's ZBA hearing.
Thank you. Seconded by,
Second.
okay, and also Cecia had her
Yes.
hand up. Everybody seconded. I love it. Okay, Zach. Ann,
Yes.
Cecia,
Yes.
and Brian,
Yes.
and Susan, yes. All in favor. Thanks, everybody. See you in a couple.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Good night.
night. Bye, everyone.